Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to Design Date, our new series of webinars. My name is Claire German. I'm the Managing Director of Design Centre Chelsea Harbour. I couldn't have asked for a better way to launch the Design Date series, as I'm simply over the moon to introduce Kemp, Martin Waller and Giles Kime. It promises to be a very chatty, informative session, so there might not be time for Q&As afterwards. So over to Giles, who is chairing the session, and please enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire, and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us all here this afternoon on this beautiful sunny afternoon. I'm not going to do much of a preamble because you're not here not to listen to me, but you're here to listen to two of the most interesting, I think, figures in contemporary British interior design, and they're Kemp and Martin Waller. And I think what's so extraordinary, just 2 points I want to make about them before we start. One of them is that for a very, very sustained amount of time, they have created design that is incredibly original and distinctive. And they, over the successive decades that they've been working, they've continued to evolve it. The second point I want to make about them is that they also are distinguished by the fact that they are incredibly collaborative. They have worked, as we're going to see, on a huge amount of different projects with different people, including together. And I just want to start by giving you all a flavour of the work that they do together and also individually. So we're just going to start now with the collaboration that they had over a collection of fabric and wallpaper, which, as you can see, absolutely distinctive and fresh and beautifully presented in a wide range of different kind of contexts. And I'm going to talk to them in a moment about the story behind that and how and why it has worked so brilliantly. But also individually, they've also collaborated a great deal. Kit, I'm sure you will have seen, this month has edited an entire edition of Homes and Gardens magazine. And I think it's just a great example of how, actually, if you are a very creative person, you have the capacity to work across a very wide range of different disciplines. And then, as we're going to see in successive slides, Kit's worked with anthropology. This is a suite in one of her hotels. Also, I think with, we've got a slide coming up of this beautiful China design she did with Wedgwood. And she's also worked with Paul Smith, and then I think it really demonstrates the breadth of what they do. And also Kit works a lot with artists and craftspeople and designers, and that's just a little snapshot that I wanted to show you about the breadth and depth of what they do together. But Martin, I just want to talk to you briefly about, obviously it's designing, but then also it's presenting, and so much of it is about context. And next slide, there's a great example of that here. In fact, this is Melissa White here, who is another artist that Kit worked with. Martin, tell us a bit about contextualizing the work that you do with Kit and on your own.
Well, of course, Kit has this amazingly distinctive style. I always say about her, in terms of hotel design, she didn't just take the road crap. She just hacked a whole path through the jungle with wonderfully bold colors and patterns, not just any patterns, but huge patterns, and then multi-layered it with art and artifacts and things in a completely new way. I mean, she just never got the memo about how design was supposed to be. Just went in a new direction and established a genre that just wasn't there before. And I think the collection we did together really gives a flavour of that. But the picture you showed before shows it could also be in a slightly more austere setting. You know, that bed had the cushions from Kit's collection, and it looked much less flamboyant and extravagant. So they can work in all sorts of contexts.
Kit, what do you think the benefit of collaboration is? Because so many people see design as a lonely journey. You obviously see it as, you know, a bit like a party.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are two sides. There are one when you're commissioned to work with someone, for example, like Martin, and so coming up with a sort of, first of all, if you're going to ask somebody to do something, you have to have a background of their work, so you know what to expect. You can't expect someone like me to come up with something which is going to be extremely minimal. It's going to be always colour and craft. So always be aware of what that background is. And then you can't put somebody into an arm lock. You've got to allow them a little space. And that goes both for the person who's doing the commissioning and the person who's the maker. Because if you put somebody in an arm lock, you've got to have that freedom of thought and creativity to come out with something which is better than your original idea. And when we did the collection for Andrew Martin, the first thing that we showed Martin and David Harris was the Mythical Land, which was a 3-meter repeat. And it's always very, very nerve-wracking to actually, when you're showing somebody your work, whether they like it or not. And I could see that Martin was not expecting a 3-meter repeat as the first thing that I showed him, because it's not the easiest thing to actually put into context and show people how to use. But it's been quite popular, hasn't it, Martin?
It's been an absolute bestseller. You know, it's
great. Yeah. But also, I love the idea. Actually, you saw on that first shot with. It's almost like a toile de joie design, but with lovely bright colours. So if you do it where it's a colour behind and then a natural behind, putting that colour through, you can start working them together. And what I like to do in a collection, especially with something like the Andrew Martin collection, is to make it easily usable for everybody in the country.
Martin, one of the mistakes that people often make when they're collaborating is it's just about putting a name to a product, isn't it? What do you think the secret for people considering collaborating is to what's the secret of creating something that is absolutely distinctively has the handwriting of the designer?
Well, you have to get out of the way. I think it's very easy to kind of bring along your own baggage, and which is an entirely pointless exercise. The whole reason to get involved with one is you get their point of view, and you mustn't dilute that point of view. You have to somehow bottle that exuberance, and if you try and interfere too much, well, it's just not going to work. You hope that you bring some experience in terms of where to get things made and factories and all that kind of thing. But the design thing, you've got to let the
I can't actually hear.
Great, we're back. Kit, for you, you're obviously working quite often with artisans and artists who might never have ever done anything like work on furniture for a hotel. These amazing headboards you've done with Pippa Cayley, who we saw just now. What's the secret of really kind of sort of harnessing their talent and working with them?
Well, first of all, it's lovely to find people who are under the radar, people who haven't been found before. And I mean, that's the thing about craft. Very often, the people that have been making the things, whether it be a basket or a fabric or a ceramic, have been quite anonymous. And it's part of my job to root those people out. And I might think that they have talent, but possibly, I mean, for example, with Pippa, I thought that she was working on the wrong backcloth. So as soon as we started just changing a few things, then it started to work for her and for me. And of course, what happens is that you form a lovely relationship and you do things together, and then they get so popular and so talented and that you can't afford to use them anymore. So there's that ongoing trying to find new people all the time.
Is it a symbiotic relationship? Do you kind of learn from them about what they do? Does that inform what you work on?
Yes, it does. I mean, I think when we met, for example, Daniel Reynolds, who does the most magnificent pots that can sit in the largest room but really hold their own. I think we bought his first mobiles, and I think we actually had to get them to work so that they actually were in a position to be saleable in a way. So we helped in that direction. And then suddenly he comes back with the most magnificent things that, so that the final product, as it were, is much better than the original small help that we gave.
Hmm.
And actually the other interesting thing is, I mean, for example, with Wedgwood, if you have a really good design, we took one of our embroideries from Chelsea Textiles and then put that onto a ceramic, onto china. And that's what's so fascinating as well. If you see something, if you have a design, if you have something, by changing the background or the medium, it can look so different again.
And just before we move on, just tell us a bit about the edition of Homes and Gardens that you edited.
Well, I think the reason why they asked me, because it's the first time they've had a guest editor in 101 years, and I don't know if that means that I'm 101 years old, but anyway, the fact is, I don't think it was entirely because I'm just really bossy. I think it's because I do have a point of view, and so they know that they're going to have an issue where I have taken ownership of it. And we could actually then name our different makers. We could show the colour. I didn't want it to be a sort of beautiful homes that look like it's just, you know, out of a picture book. I wanted it to be much more artisanal and artistic. And I think that's what I can bring into an interior. I think lots of designers are extremely good, but they're not really artistic. They're a really safe pair of hands, and that's what's required in a lot of jobs. But what I can actually inject is a strong point of view, not to everybody's taste, but certainly to a few.
I mentioned at the beginning that you both, in your own different ways, succeeded in being incredibly distinctive. You've ploughed your own sort of aesthetic furrows in a way, and I just want to look briefly, give the audience a snapshot of exactly how distinctive and unique you both can be. And we've got various slides. I just want to show the audience, starting here with Apollo 11, and then these giant footballers here, and also the extraordinary showrooms that Martin has created most recently at Design Centre Chelsea Harbour, that really look and feel like nothing else you've ever seen. It sort of creates a kind of, it's almost like sort of creating a magic that draws people in and inspires people, and sort of elevates what you do to a completely different level. And then moving on, of course, Kit, you have done something very similar. You've kind of, there's something quite escapist about what you do, and the sort of the bravery of your design, whether it's here, I think at the Ham Yard with this amazing colour. You're going to have to pronounce it.
Soho.
Soho. And the name of the artist is?
Carla Kranendonk. She's a Dutch artist. Yeah.
And then outside, I think this is outside the Crosby Street in New York, this amazing sculpture. And then downstairs at Ham Yard, these, as Martin alluded to, just extraordinary bravery with scale that is completely transformative. And then, of course, here in the next slide with these bowling shoes that you've pulled in from all over the world. And I just, Martin, I just want to start with you to explore this subject. How is it that you have managed to have this very sort of singular vision that you've kind of stuck to for so long, and which always feels fresh and always has the capacity to surprise?
Well, I've always thought we're selling so much more than products. We're selling magic. We're selling theatre. I was very influenced by the Bieber store in High Street, Kensington, Big Bieber, Hulaniki store, which was just the most astonishing retail experience that I've still ever seen. And that kind of sense of excitement when you come into a store, I think is very important. And then I think beyond that, of course, I never really grew up beyond the age of about 11. So things like the Apollo 11 spaceship and graffiti walls and all those kind of things are all the kind of fun, exciting elements. I mean, I'm a great believer that designing and decorating should be fun and exciting. And I think that in itself keeps it fresh.
Attitude as well. I mean, I think it's so fabulous. There's a real strength there and a sort of mighty look to it, which I love. Yeah.
The sort of ideas you have after spending an afternoon on Pinterest, Martin. Where do you get your ideas from?
I think ideas are just everywhere. I'm constantly astonished by the talent of people all around the world. When you see someone like Nagaland, the textile weavers, you know, the astonishing skill and talent, or in Mali, where they're wrapping those giant tablets of salt in rope, and the finished thing is so beautiful. So inspiration is the theatre. I mean, I can remember seeing The Lion King for the first time on stage, and those first few minutes when the sun comes up and the animals come down the stage, and you just go, this is a wondrous kind of theatrical moment. And so almost everything is inspired. Old black and white movies. I love, and the one I particularly quote is The Third Man, because it's so brilliantly lit that, and you watch a movie like that and you just want to somehow grasp that, those ideas. So it's everywhere, really.
Kit, what about you? What's your sort of font of inspiration?
A lot of it comes from nature. For example, we were just thinking about Monsoon, which is one of the wallpapers that I did, and that was based on in northern Africa, where before the monsoon rains come, the walls have a sort of chalk that is put on them, and then the women sort of draw designs, and then when the monsoon rains come along, all the designs get washed away, and next year they again can start designing. And I mean, things like that are just fabulous. Then with the bowling shoes, to make any area, and especially areas in between places where you're going into the bowling alley just to get your shoes, that's normally a place which is really ugly. So suddenly to have a collection which we bought on eBay of, you know, various shoes over about sort of 6 or 8 months, I'd always liked the design of them, and then putting them together and then putting them on the wall with old bowling balls made a real statement, and you actually wanted to sit on a chair while you were putting your shoes on and enjoy the experience. Yeah, there are loads of different areas all the time. And you know, the other thing is, you don't want a pastiche on the past. I can't afford lots of really expensive works of art, maybe just one. And so in between, you've got to make your own. And that's a really fun aspect.
Martin, as well as creating these incredible collections of fabrics and wallpaper and furniture that sell all over the world, you also, as well as designing your own showrooms, you also do interior design projects. And what advice would you give to somebody who is literally starting from a blank canvas? How does that journey start? Very often with, you know, it could be literally just an empty room in a new house. You know, the possibilities are endless. How do you nail it down to one idea?
Design is all about people. You have to know the people and what they like, and everybody's interested in something, and everybody's inspired by somewhere, and you just have to unlock what it is that person wants. So, I mean, when you're doing design for other people, you've really got to be led a lot by them, and just have the conversation, get to know the client is the critical thing, and what they like, and spend a lot of time on that part of it. It's about so much more than color boards and paint charts. It's about people.
Kit, I think at last count you had 8 hotels. Is that right? You've got 6 in London, 6 in
10.
London, 2 in New York, 10.
Yeah, 8 in London, 2 in New York.
So that's a lot of hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Where does that journey start for you when you're starting from a blank canvas?
Well, actually, we're so lucky because I love to look at everybody's collections. There are so many different fabulous designers out there, and I want to use their work. I don't really want to use sort of recolored things from the past. I want to see new designs. And I mean, it's the thing is that I can do every room differently. And so I'm living with them through the seasons, whether it's spring, summer, autumn, winter, on a thundery day, on a winter's day, on a summer's day. So you're learning all the time. So often, you know, lots of people have great designs, but then they don't have the courage to carry them through. And so I like to do that. I like to have a bit of an experiment. And actually, I like to break the rules as well, because they can be a bit boring after a while.
And I mean, do you ever try and coordinate anything, or is it just sort of, how do you sort of meld it all together so that it works?
Well, I mean, there has to be a balance. So if you're using, I mean, I love to have a bold interior. I don't want it to be frantic. And I don't want it to be timid either. So there's always that balance, and it's all about scale and balance. And I think starting off my life by working with an architect, I was very lucky, because then you're working and looking at scale all the time, even if you're just making tea and holding a tape measure, which is really what I did.
I think as we've got a few examples of this in a moment, but I think what's really remarkable about both of you is that you're as we are able to see this afternoon, you're incredibly generous with your knowledge and your expertise, and you're very good at sort of sharing your enthusiasm for things. And just a few slides that are I just want to look at now that are a really good example of that, and really distinguish what you do. So we've got Martin. Just talk us through this amazing bit of theatre. Talk about theatre. What's the story behind this?
Based on the heyday of Blackpool Pleasure Beach and recreating that kind of that world, that lost world, really. And then this, I've been lucky enough to work a little bit on movies down the years, and movie designers are often the great unsung hero of the design world. I mean, people like Ken Adam was a genius. And this, I've been involved with 1 or 2 Ridley Scott movies, and this was from Prometheus. And we recreated the space station, and it was an amazing thing for anybody of my generation who remembers the moon landing in 1969. That's never really left me. And I'm amazingly disappointed that we travel by the hoverboards we were promised, or well, I'm not wearing a one-piece white jumpsuit that I was anticipating by 2020. But that whole space thing is infinitely exciting.
And these were stands at Decorex or Maison and Objet, or
Maison Objet, yes, yeah.
And I mean, it seems like quite a sort of oblique way of, it's not an obvious way to sell fabric, wallpaper, and furniture, but
well, that's never the priority.
So it's about creating a standout and a bit of theatre. Yes,
I mean, design is infinitely exciting, and you should give full rein to that part of it. And well, I mean, we were talking about context earlier, but taking things out of context is very important. So, I mean, you can't see it, but within these stands, there was kind of regular furniture, and it enabled it to look even more extraordinary because of its surroundings.
Kit, you're also brilliant at sharing your enthusiasm. Tell us a bit about I think you've done 3 books now in fairly quick succession.
Yeah. I mean, Andrew's done thousands of books, but I've only managed to do 3. And well, this is the cover of Design Thread, and everything is about scale, and it's about a reason to be. Here, the carpet from Robert Stevenson actually held this whole room together. And to use a very large scale repeat like One Way on the sofa was actually, it made it look much more interesting. And then pairing it with one of Martin's Peruvian blankets, and then, you know, a fine cellwork cushion with the gold, which then goes over the mantelpiece, that's fine. But as far as Design Thread is concerned, I mean, that's basically what my blog is called. And every Wednesday I get together with my team, which is like the highlight of the week. And we have day-to-day, which are things that we're doing within the studio, whether it's we're actually doing a lot of sewing there as well, and sort of things which are very much handiwork, and finding out ideas, and then out and about, which is what's going on everywhere else. So going to different exhibitions and finding out what everybody is doing. And then we've got also sleeping around, which is because we've done so many bedrooms. And within that, we can actually show a different one for the next sort of probably 10 years. And so we've got a sort of all-round point of view on things. And whether it's large scale, large sort of very well-known people, we have our Meet the Makers every sort of month or so. And I find it just gives me a new look at what we've been doing, and hearing other people's thoughts also gives me inspiration, because it is about people, as Martin says, and being with people who love what they do always is inspiring, and you get more ideas from that.
Martin, I think you've you're in the process of putting together your 24th book.
The 24th Interior Design Review. I've been very lucky to have this kind of front row seat at the best interior designers from all around the world. And the Design Review now, almost quarter of a century of not just design trends and ideas, but it kind of documents the social and political changes that have happened in the last quarter of a century. I mean, certainly it illustrates the rise of China and the astonishing design work that's being done there currently, and also the way design has developed in South America or Turkey. People like Zeynep Fadililolu, who became the first woman in history to design a mosque. So it's been an extraordinarily gratifying experience to be able to do that.
And when, sorry, Kit.
We can't forget Zaha Hadid. I mean, I know she's no longer with us, but as a woman architect, I thought she was quite extraordinary. You know what she achieved.
Yes.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Giles. Yeah.
Martin, in your 40-year career, I mean, you must, as you say, you've seen a lot of changes. How, in that time, how is it? It's obviously a huge subject, but just give us a sort of snapshot into how you feel interior design has changed and how it might change in the future, continue to evolve.
Well, I think interior design has always changed very much faster than people give it credit for. I mean, in the 20th century, we went from Art Nouveau to Art Deco and Bauhaus and modernist and brutalist and contemporary and pop and futuristic, and all these things kind of happened, shoehorned into the 20th century. So it's always changing and always evolving. I think one of the things that's most interesting at the moment and is the kind of multitude of different points of view and different ideas. So there are things that are very glamorous and polished, and then there are things that are very earthy, and these things are sitting side by side in the design world, and many other things. I call it the kaleidoscope of design. All these shards of ideas that you shake up and they make a perfect pattern.
Kit, just sort of evolving that thought. Designers now are kind of open to so many more influences now as a result of social media than they would have been a generation ago, coming at them from every single direction. How do you think? What advice would you give to somebody starting out as a designer to try and sort of almost make themselves immune to it so that they're able to create something fresh and unique in the way that you have done?
I think it's very, very difficult because things are thrown at you all the time. But actually, at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with just having that scrapbook or Pinterest and just picking on all the things that you see that you love. And then suddenly, by just putting them all together in your kaleidoscope, it starts to make sense, because there will be a repeat of things, whether it's because you like luminous plastic or whether you like beaded beer mats or whatever it is. You'll find that there is something that is coming through, and then you can draw on that. And actually, you always have to remember the things that you first loved as well, because you're always going to go back to that. It's so easy to get into a situation where the tail starts wagging the dog. You start thinking, oh, well, I'll give that a go because somebody says that looks good. At the end of the day, it's your own integrity, and you have to have that that strong point of view and say yes, no. I mean, I'm very quick with what I like and what I don't like. It's very strong. And that, of course, hasn't always been like that, but it has developed. And so it means that I can sort a lot of the dross out. But nevertheless, at the same time, you always have to have that open mind to something completely mad and something different, like Martin's side table, which is really a digestive biscuit. I mean, I love all that.
And do you find it useful to look at the work of other designers, or
I love
not?
it. I mean, no, I absolutely love it. And it's not whether it's my point of view. I don't know. I don't mind if they're a technophobe or a fashionista or a minimalist or a maximalist. It's whether that's a congruent piece of work, whether it's harmonious and whether it works. I mean, that's what I respect.
Mm. And Martin, a similar question for you. What advice would you give to a designer setting out, so somebody planning to be a designer setting out now?
Well, I don't think design is about design in a limited sense. I mean, I think it's about a hinterland of interests, of all kinds of interests. I mean, obviously art is important, theatre is important. I think the great art form of the 21st century is going to be computer games. I don't know if people saw that exhibition at the V&A. I mean, the astonishing amount of work that goes into creating computer games, and we're just in the foothills of that. And you look at practically everything and see it. But I think it's important to know at least a little bit about a lot of things. I think that's the key to design, not just design.
Good advice. Now, Kit, I just want to, obviously, craftsmanship is something that is fairly integral, or very integral to what you do. What is it about craftsmanship that appeals to you, and what place does it have? I mean, Martin's obviously very influenced by sort of futurism, but you're really influenced by things that are handmade. Tell us a bit about your love of craftsmanship.
I think that I love it because every single piece is different because it's made by hand. So it's almost getting away from the mass-produced look. If you get the work of a weaver or a block printer or a basket maker, you could ask them to make the same thing over and over. And every time, A, it would have the sign or the feel that maker has, and B, it will always be different. And I do like that individual feel that you get from that. And I realize you can't have that in curtains, in everything in every room, but you can have a little piece. And the funny thing is, it could be the smallest thing that captures your imagination within a room. And I like it, that feel that when you've left the room, you're carrying something with you. There's a thought that makes you think, I've just got to go back and have a look at that. How did they do it? I've never seen that before. What a strange combination. It's something that piques your curiosity and also isn't too serious. It can make you smile. So that's what I look, and actually that's what I love about Martin's things. Whenever I go and see whatever he's doing, we always end up just having a good old laugh.
And Martin, what about you? Is craftsmanship important? Does that inform what you do?
Well, I'm constantly astonished, as I said before, about the skills of people. So if you're in the Andes and people in pretty humble circumstances producing these fabulous textiles and rugs and so on, and they're not confined by the tyranny of taste that we are. They put together color combinations that we would never do, and they come up with something entirely original. And I think you can find that all over the world, people doing different things, and it's always wonderful.
The idea of the tyranny of taste, and I have to say the last 45 minutes have gone incredibly quickly. We've covered a huge range of subjects, and And I'm really grateful to you both for coming along and sharing your knowledge and enthusiasm. And also, I'm sure you'd both agree, full of admiration for Claire and Becky and Saoirse Design Centre for really seizing this opportunity to move this series of conversations in design, which are a sort of to the highlights of the events at Design Centre Chelsea Harbour, and so effortlessly transforming it into a sort of digital world. So I'm really grateful to you all at the Design Centre Chelsea Harbour, and also I just want to finish by really thanking you on behalf of the audience, which I gather is over 1,000 people have been watching today, and thank you both so much.